Hey everyone, so my name is Mitchell, and I'm going to be teaching a concept from Chapter 6, Perceiving and Interpreting Social Worlds. So for today's presentation, I'm going to be focusing mainly on the idea of a stereotype, and we're just going to go over what is a stereotype, some stereotypes that are used to describe people in the United States, stereotypes and personal constructs, why stereotypes are harmful, and then we'll go into the questions for this discussion. So, first of all, what is a stereotype? So, the book defines a stereotype as a mental structure that allows us to use group membership to make predictions about behavior. So, what does this mean exactly in like some context? So, stereotypes involve the process of attributing assumptions about an individual, so like a single person or a group of people, that is based on the consensus about the entire group that they're a part of, whether it be right or wrong. It doesn't matter, it's still a stereotype. And so making inferences about an individual without personally knowing them or attempting communication with one another. So here are some stereotypes used to describe the American people. So, like I said previously, there's positive stereotypes and negative stereotypes. So let's go over the positives first. So we have generosity. So a lot of American people are seen as very generous, very giving people. That could be, just the giving of information or giving like material goods. Optimism, so we're always seen as like very jolly and happy people for the most part. There's also like our hardworking nature. So that kind of goes into, the 9 to 5 jobs and um, always striving to be the best. You could like use the example of, the United States being the first country to go to the moon, for example, is like hardworking nature, and that kind of ties into frontier mentality. So this can date all the way back to when Americans first settled on the land in North America, where there was the whole westward expansion and manifest destiny, and so that kind of ties into how Americans are viewed today with the frontier mentality of being resilient and hardworking. And then there's the friendliness, which also peers into generosity. So Americans are seen as very friendly individuals and people with just the way that we act as as like a whole population. Next, there's negative stereotypes. So the first one is obsession with guns. Americans are seen as like gunslinging hillbillies that, you step one foot on on their property and you're blown to bits. And this kind of goes into a lot with what's been happening, for the past like almost decade now with, or even more than that, with, school shootings. And that's been mainly the prominent issue in America, with multiple of them happening each year. So that's a negative stereotype that's been attributed to Americans. There's also materialism. So, Americans are seen as equating goods to how much they cost, and like the over capitalistic nature of America. You can see this with Times Square, how everyone takes pictures of Times Square, and all the bright lights and signs are usually just advertisements for goods and services. Then there's also the lack of cultural awareness. So especially when Americans are viewed, when they go to other countries, they're seen as, very arrogant and not aware of other cultures. And so you can usually, spot the American out of a giant crowd of people because of the way they act. Next, there's racism. That's a big stereotype that is equated to Americans. There's been a history with, the whole civil rights movement, so, that's something that people attribute to Americans, especially people who are more right wing or, live in like the South or the Midwest. People attribute those that group of people to being very racist. Next, there's arrogance and nationalism. So I kind of touched on arrogance already, but the American people are seen as arrogant, and nationalism, which is, love for your country. So Americans are seen as, like America's like the best. America is like, the only country that matters. So these are just some stereotypes that are used to describe Americans. I just chose Americans because I think that's a pretty baseline group that we can kind of all relate to. So stereotypes and personal constructs. So a personal construct is a mental representation of the attributes we assign to others. So this is used to describe like unique characteristics about an individual. So stereotypes are often formed from negative personal constructs. So negative personal constructs about groups of individuals is often based from hate and racism. So a personal construct, like I said, is adjectives that describe a person. And so stereotypes are often formed from personal constructs made from individuals about another group of people. So next, why are stereotypes harmful? So the use of stereotypes often depict groups of people in a negative light. In most cases, this just creates a divide among people of different ethnicities, and the most extreme cases can lead to violence and the murders of innocent people. So, as a very extreme example, I chose, the Holocaust with, the individual at the time equating stereotypes to Jewish people, which led to, the mass killing of over 6 million of them. So that's just a very extreme example of how stereotypes can be harmful. So here are some things we can do to make a difference. So first, don't judge someone based on perceived notions, judge them based on their character as an individual. So get to know people and don't just judge them based on, what they look like. Next, analyze your personal constructs about groups of individuals and find traces of hate. So this is something, that takes a lot of self-reflection. If you feel like when you think about a group of people and you feel some type of internalized hatred towards them, that's where you need to check your personal constructs and make sure you aren't using that in a negative way and try to fix those. And next is check other people when they use stereotypes in a negative fashion. So if your friend says some negative stereotype about a group of individuals, let them know that, that's not okay to use. And, it perpetuates the stereotype by using it. So here are the questions I have for you guys. Question 1, have you ever been subjected to a stereotype before? What was the stereotype and how did it make you feel? And how did you respond? Question 2, using the idea of personal constructs, describe the individual you chose for your shield of life speech. So for example, I chose my cousin. So my cousin's shorter than me, but I'm over 6 foot. So he's not like super short or anything, but my cousin is shorter than me. He's like super smart. He's a genius. He's a video game nerd and he's really adventurous. So the constructs I used were that, he's short, he's smart, he's a nerd, and he's adventurous. All right. Yeah. Thanks everyone for listening to my presentation. And hopefully you guys learned a bit about stereotypes and personal constructs.